In today's video we delve into the unsettling experiences that often accompany college life, particularly the strange and eerie encounters with unusual neighbors that can turn an ordinary living situation into something far more sinister. College is typically seen as a time of excitement and exploration, but lurking beneath the surface of this vibrant atmosphere are stories that can chill you to the bone. Imagine moving into a new dorm or apartment filled with anticipation and hope, only to discover that the people living around you are not quite what they seem. From the reclusive roommate who never seems to leave their room to the eccentric neighbor who engages in bizarre late-night rituals, these unsettling experiences can leave you questioning your safety and sanity. As we explore these eerie encounters, we aim to set a tone that is both engaging and suspenseful, drawing you into the world of unexpected dangers that can arise in the most mundane settings. The theme of this video revolves around the idea that danger can often be found in the most familiar places, challenging the notion that college life is solely about academic pursuits and social gatherings. We will share chilling anecdotes and first-hand accounts that highlight the unsettling realities of living in close quarters with strangers, emphasizing how these experiences can transform a seemingly safe environment into a source of anxiety and fear. As we navigate through these stories, we invite you to reflect on your own experiences and consider the hidden dangers that may lurk in your surroundings. The unsettling nature of these encounters serves as a reminder that not everything is as it appears, and sometimes the people we least suspect can pose the greatest threats. So prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown as we uncover the strange behaviors and unsettling habits of college neighbors that can leave a lasting impression. Whether it's the odd noises coming from the apartment next door, or the peculiar habits of a classmate, these experiences can serve as a stark reminder that danger often hides in plain sight. Join us as we explore the darker side of college life, revealing the unexpected threats that can arise when you least expect them. By the end of this video, you may find yourself looking at your neighbors and your college experience through a different lens, aware of the eerie possibilities that lie just beyond your door. Buckle up for a suspenseful ride as we uncover the unsettling truths of living in close proximity to the unknown. Garrett's off-campus housing situation was anything but ordinary. He had chosen to live in a co-op, a communal living arrangement that promised a unique blend of independence and shared experiences. The co-op was home to a diverse group of residents, each with their own quirks and personalities. From the aspiring artist who filled the common areas with her vibrant paintings, to the tech-savvy student who was always glued to his computer, the atmosphere was lively yet unpredictable. However, it was the peculiar woman who lived in the corner unit that truly captured Garrett's attention and sparked his curiosity. She was an older woman, perhaps in her late 60s, with an air of mystery that surrounded her. Her name was never mentioned in casual conversation, and she rarely participated in the communal activities that brought the other residents together. Instead, she kept to herself, often seen peering out from behind her curtains, her eyes scanning the courtyard as if she were watching for something, or someone. Her unsettling behavior became a topic of whispered speculation among the residents. Some claimed she was a retired professor, while others suggested she had a more sinister past. Garrett found himself drawn to her enigmatic presence, intrigued by the stories that seemed to swirl around her. He often caught glimpses of her through the window, her silhouette framed by the dim light of her apartment, and he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than met the eye. As days turned into weeks, Garrett's concern about her began to grow. He noticed that she rarely left her apartment, and when she did, it was always at odd hours, shuffling down the hallway with a peculiar gait. Her movements were deliberate yet erratic, and there was an unsettling quality to the way she would pause and stare at the walls, as if she were listening to something only she could hear. This behavior ignited a mix of curiosity and unease within Garrett. He found himself wondering what secrets lay behind her closed door, and what had led her to this co-op. Was she simply a reclusive woman seeking solitude, or was there something darker lurking beneath the surface? The more he observed her, the more questions he had, and he felt an inexplicable urge to uncover the truth. Garrett's fascination with the mysterious woman grew, intertwining with his own feelings of isolation in the bustling college environment. As he navigated his own challenges, he couldn't help but feel a connection to her, both of them existing on the fringes of the vibrant community around them. The tension between curiosity and concern began to consume him, setting the stage for an exploration of the unknown that would ultimately lead him down a path he never anticipated. Garrett's initial interactions with the older woman in the co-op were marked by a series of strange and unsettling encounters that left him feeling both confused and uneasy. It all began one evening in the common kitchen, a space that was usually filled with laughter and the aroma of shared meals. As Garrett prepared a simple dinner, He noticed her standing silently in the corner, her presence almost ghostly against the backdrop of the bustling kitchen. She was meticulously arranging a collection of mismatched teacups on the counter, her fingers moving with an almost obsessive precision. The other residents, engrossed in their conversations and cooking, seemed oblivious to her peculiar behavior, but Garrett couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As he stirred his pasta, he caught her eye, and she turned to him with a sudden intensity that made him freeze. "Do you believe in the power of tea?" she asked, her voice low and raspy, as if she were sharing a secret. Garrett hesitated, unsure of how to respond. I guess so," he replied, trying to keep the conversation light. She nodded slowly, her gaze unwavering, and then she began to recount an elaborate tale about the healing properties of various herbs, her words tumbling out in a rush. The way she spoke was almost hypnotic, yet there was an underlying tension that made Garrett's skin crawl. He felt trapped in the moment, caught between politeness and an instinctual urge to retreat. After that encounter, Garrett found himself increasingly aware of her presence in the kitchen. She would often appear at odd hours, her movements deliberate and slow, as if she were conducting a ritual. One morning, he walked in to find her standing by the refrigerator, staring intently at a carton of milk, as if it held the answers to life's mysteries. When he greeted her, she turned slowly, her expression unreadable, and simply replied, "It's all about the timing." The cryptic nature of her words left him feeling unsettled, and he couldn't help but wonder what she meant. The other residents had mixed reactions to her presence. Some were dismissive, treating her as an eccentric who simply preferred solitude, while others whispered about her odd habits and speculated about her past. "She's harmless," one resident assured Garrett, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper lurking beneath her surface. As he observed her interactions, or lack thereof, with the others, he felt a growing sense of isolation. The more he tried to understand her, the more he felt like an outsider in his own home. The kitchen, once a place of comfort and camaraderie, had transformed into a space filled with tension and uncertainty, and Garrett found himself questioning not only the woman's intentions, but also his own place within the co-op. Each encounter left him with more questions than answers, deepening his unease and curiosity about the mysterious woman who seemed to inhabit a world all her own. As the weeks passed, the frequency of Garrett's unsettling encounters with the older woman escalated, each interaction leaving him more unnerved than the last. One particularly chilling incident occurred late one evening when he returned home from a study session at the library. As he approached the co-op, he noticed her standing on the sidewalk, her figure silhouetted against the dim streetlights. She was staring directly at him, her eyes wide and unblinking, as if she had been waiting for him. A shiver ran down his spine as he quickened his pace, the weight of her gaze pressing heavily on him. It felt as though she could see right through him, peeling back the layers of his thoughts and fears. He hurried past her, trying to shake off the feeling of dread that clung to him like a shadow. The next day he confided in one of his housemates, hoping for some reassurance or insight. "Have you noticed her? The woman in the corner unit?" he asked, his voice low. "Just ignore her, man, she's harmless. Everyone knows she's a bit eccentric, it's not worth worrying about." The lack of information only heightened Garrett's anxiety. He wanted to believe his housemate, but the more he tried to dismiss her presence, the more it gnawed at him. The woman's strange habits and eerie demeanor had become a constant source of tension in his life, and he found it increasingly difficult to focus on his studies or enjoy the camaraderie of his friends. As days turned into weeks, Garrett's fear morphed into paranoia. He began to see her everywhere, her shadow flitting past his window, her voice echoing in the hallways, even the faint scent of her herbal teas wafting through the air. Each time he caught a glimpse of her, his heart raced, and he felt a tightening in his chest. The once vibrant co-op now felt like a labyrinth of secrets, with the older woman at its center, weaving a web of unease that ensnared him. He started to question his own sanity, wondering if he was imagining her presence, or if she truly was watching him. The other residents continued to brush off his concerns, treating him as if he were overreacting. "You're just being paranoid," they would say, but Garrett couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The more he tried to ignore her, the more she seemed to invade his thoughts, her image haunting him even in his dreams. He felt trapped in a cycle of fear, unable to escape the unsettling reality of living so close to someone who seemed to embody the very essence of mystery and danger. With each passing day, the tension mounted, and Garrett found himself spiraling deeper into a world of anxiety, where the line between reality and paranoia blurred, leaving him questioning everything he thought he knew about his surroundings. The night Garrett had dreaded finally arrived, and it was a night that would haunt him for years to come. After weeks of unsettling encounters with the older woman, he had convinced himself that he needed to confront his fears head-on. He had spent the evening studying, trying to focus on his work, but the oppressive weight of anxiety made it impossible. As he prepared for bed, he felt a strange compulsion to check his closet, a nagging feeling that something was amiss. With a deep breath, he approached the closet door, his heart pounding in his chest. He hesitated for a moment, the darkness beyond the door seeming to pulse with an ominous energy. Finally, he grasped the handle and flung the door open, only to be met with a sight that sent chills racing down his spine. There, crouched among his clothes, was the older woman, her eyes wide and unblinking, a twisted smile creeping across her face. The shock of the moment rendered him momentarily speechless, his mind racing to comprehend how she had gotten there. "Garrett, why are you here?" he managed to stammer, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman didn't respond. Instead, she tilted her head slightly as if studying him, her smile growing wider. Fear surged through Garrett and he instinctively took a step back, but the closet door was behind him, leaving him no escape. "Garrett! Get out!" he shouted, his voice cracking with panic. The confrontation felt surreal, as if he were trapped in a nightmare from which he couldn't wake. The woman slowly rose to her feet, her movements deliberate and unnerving. "Old woman, I just wanted to see you. You have such potential." Her words sent a jolt of terror through him and he felt a primal urge to flee. He pushed past her, stumbling into his room, but she followed, her presence looming like a dark cloud. In that moment of chaos, Garrett's heart raced as he fumbled for his phone, desperately dialing his housemates. "Garrett, help! She's in my room!" he gasped, his voice trembling. The seconds felt like hours as he waited for their arrival, the woman's gaze fixed on him, her smile never wavering. Just as he felt he might lose his grip on reality, he heard the sound of footsteps approaching. His housemates burst through the door, their faces a mix of confusion and concern. "Housemate, what's going on?" one of them shouted, but Garrett could barely articulate the horror he had just experienced. The older woman turned to face them, her demeanor shifting from unsettling to eerily calm. "Old woman, I was just having a chat with Garrett," she said, her voice dripping with an unsettling sweetness. The tension in the room escalated as one of his housemates reached for the phone to call the police. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air and Garrett felt a mix of relief and dread. The police arrived, their presence a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded. As they assessed the situation, Garrett's heart raced, knowing that the nightmare was far from over. The woman's unsettling smile remained etched in his mind, a haunting reminder of the terror that had invaded his life. In the aftermath of the terrifying incident, the atmosphere in the co-op shifted dramatically. The police had escorted the older woman away, but the unsettling presence of her actions lingered in the air like a thick fog. As Garrett sat in the common room with his housemates, still reeling from the confrontation, the property manager arrived to address the situation. With a grave expression, he explained that the woman was not just a random tenant, but had a long-standing connection to the property. She was the estranged mother of the previous owner, a fact that had been kept under wraps due to her mental health issues. The revelation sent shockwaves through Garrett and his housemates. They learned that the woman had been living in the co-op for years, her presence tolerated but largely ignored by the residents. Her erratic behavior had been attributed to her struggles with severe anxiety and paranoia, which had escalated over time. The property manager expressed regret for not having informed the residents about her history, acknowledging that her mental health had deteriorated to the point where she could no longer distinguish between reality and her delusions. As Garrett processed this information, a complex mix of emotions washed over him. He felt a deep sense of pity for the woman, recognizing that her unsettling behavior stemmed from a place of profound pain and isolation. It was clear that she had been grappling with her demons for far too long, and the thought of her living in such a state tugged at his heartstrings. Yet, intertwined with that pity was an undeniable fear. The memory of her wide-eyed stare and twisted smile haunted him, a reminder of the very real danger she had posed. Garrett found himself grappling with the duality of his feelings. On one hand, he wanted to empathize with her plight, to understand the struggles that had led her to such a dark place. On the other hand, he couldn't shake the fear that had gripped him during their confrontation. The woman had invaded his personal space in a way that felt deeply violating, and the thought of her lurking in the shadows of his life left him feeling vulnerable. In the days that followed, the co-op community rallied together, discussing how to create a safer environment for everyone. They organized meetings to address mental health awareness and the importance of communication among residents. Garrett participated, hoping to channel his fear into something constructive. Yet, as he listened to the stories of others who had encountered the woman, he couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of unease. The incident had changed him. It had opened his eyes to the complexities of mental health and the hidden struggles that people face. While he felt a sense of responsibility to advocate for understanding and compassion, he also knew that the scars of that night would take time to heal. The woman's true identity, once shrouded in mystery, had been revealed, but the implications of her presence would continue to resonate within him, a haunting reminder of the thin line between empathy and fear. In the quiet neighborhood where the houses stood shoulder to shoulder, one resident, Sarah, had always prided herself on being observant. She had a knack for noticing the little details that others often overlooked. So, when Quinn moved in next door, she couldn't help but take note of his peculiar lifestyle. At first glance, Quinn seemed like an ordinary guy, early 30s, a bit scruffy around the edges, with a penchant for wearing hoodies and jeans. However, it was his habits that piqued Sarah's curiosity. He kept odd hours, often seen leaving his house late at night only to return at dawn, his demeanor shrouded in an air of secrecy. Sarah would often catch glimpses of him through her window, watching as he paced back and forth in his small yard, deep in thought, or perhaps engaged in a heated conversation on his phone. There was something about his intensity that made her uneasy. She noticed that he rarely interacted with the other neighbors, preferring to keep to himself. The few times they crossed paths, he offered only a curt nod, his eyes darting away as if he were hiding something. As time went on, Sarah began to notice the tension in Quinn's relationship with Ellie, his girlfriend who would occasionally visit. Ellie was the opposite of Quinn, bright, bubbly, and full of life. She would arrive with a smile, but it quickly faded when she entered his home. Sarah could see the strain in their interactions through the window, the way Ellie would throw her hands up in frustration, or the way Quinn would retreat into silence, his jaw clenched. It was clear that their relationship was fraught with unspoken issues, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding as she watched their dynamic unfold. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah noticed a particularly heated argument between Quinn and Ellie. Their voices rose, sharp and filled with emotion, echoing through the thin walls that separated their homes. Sarah felt a pang of concern as she strained to hear the words exchanged, but the specifics eluded her. All she could discern was the palpable tension that hung in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. As the days passed, the strange occurrences around Quinn's house began to escalate. Sarah observed unusual visitors coming and going at odd hours, their faces obscured by hoods and shadows. Whispers of hushed conversations floated through the air, and the atmosphere grew increasingly charged with an unsettling energy. It was as if something dark was brewing just beyond her line of sight, and Sarah felt an instinctual urge to uncover the truth. The stage was set for dramatic events to unfold, and Sarah found herself caught in a web of intrigue and anxiety. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong next door, and her curiosity morphed into a sense of urgency. As she peered through her window, she knew that the quiet facade of their neighborhood was about to be shattered, and she was determined to uncover the secrets that lay hidden behind Quinn's closed doors. The night was thick with tension as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet neighborhood. Sarah sat in her living room, her eyes glued to the window, when she suddenly heard raised voices coming from Quinn's house. The argument escalated quickly, punctuated by the sound of something crashing against the wall. Her heart raced as she exchanged worried glances with her husband, who had just entered the room. They both knew something was terribly wrong. Within moments, the chaos intensified. Neighbors began to emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion. Sarah could see the concerned faces of her fellow residents, their expressions a mix of confusion and fear. Whispers filled the air as they speculated about what was happening next door. "Should we call the police?" someone asked, their voice trembling. The tension was palpable, and Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She knew they had to act. As the first sirens pierced the night, a wave of relief washed over the crowd, but it was quickly overshadowed by anxiety. The flashing lights illuminated the street, casting eerie shadows on the houses. Officers rushed to Quinn's front door, their faces set with determination. Sarah watched as they knocked forcefully, demanding entry. The chaos inside was now spilling out into the open, and the neighbors stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Moments later, the door swung open, and the scene inside was revealed. Quinn stumbled out, bloodied and disheveled, his shirt torn and his face bruised. The sight sent shockwaves through the gathered crowd. He looked disoriented, his eyes wide with fear and pain. The officers quickly assessed his injuries, their expressions shifting from urgency to concern. "What happened?" one of them asked, but Quinn could only shake his head, his breath coming in ragged gasps. As the officers moved to secure the area, Ellie emerged from the house, her demeanor starkly different from Quinn's. She was visibly agitated, her hands trembling as she was placed in handcuffs. The officers spoke to her in firm but calm tones, but she seemed to resist, her voice rising in protest. "I didn't mean to. It was an accident," she cried. But the gravity of the situation was clear. The neighbors watched in stunned silence as Ellie was led away, her face a mask of despair. The impact of the incident rippled through the community like a shockwave. What had once been a quiet neighborhood was now a scene of chaos and confusion. Conversations erupted among the residents filled with disbelief and concern. "I never thought it would come to this," one neighbor murmured, shaking their head. The sense of safety that had once enveloped the area was shattered, replaced by a lingering fear of the unknown. As the police continued their investigation, Sarah felt a profound sense of unease settle over her. The events of that night would forever alter the fabric of their community, leaving behind questions that lingered in the air. What had truly happened between Quinn and Ellie, and how could they, as neighbors, support one another in the wake of such violence? The answers remained elusive, but one thing was certain. The night had changed everything, and the echoes of that chaos would resonate long after the sirens faded into the distance. When the new neighbor Lisa moved into the quaint suburban neighborhood, she was eager to settle into her new life. The houses were charming, the streets lined with trees, and the sense of community palpable. However, her attention quickly turned to the peculiar man living next door, Damon. He was a reclusive figure often seen wandering around his yard in mismatched clothing, his hair unkempt and wild. Lisa couldn't help but notice that he rarely interacted with anyone, preferring to keep to himself. His house, a once vibrant blue, was now faded and overgrown with weeds, giving it an air of neglect that intrigued her. As days turned into weeks, Lisa found herself increasingly curious about Damon and his unusual living situation. She would often catch glimpses of him through her window, watching as he engaged in odd activities. One day, she saw him meticulously arranging a collection of strange objects on his porch: rusty gears, broken clocks, and what appeared to be fragments of old machinery. He seemed to be in a world of his own, completely absorbed in his work, and Lisa couldn't help but wonder what he was creating. The more she observed, the more questions filled her mind. What was his story? Why did he choose to live in such isolation? Lisa felt a mix of fascination and concern, and her curiosity began to morph into a need to understand the man behind the odd habits. She often found herself daydreaming about approaching him, but each time she gathered the courage, she hesitated, unsure of how he would respond. As the nights grew longer, strange occurrences began to unfold at Damon's house. Lisa would hear unusual noises drifting through the walls, clattering sounds, muffled voices, and the occasional thud that sent a shiver down her spine. One night she was jolted awake by a loud crash, followed by a series of frantic footsteps. Heart racing, she peered through her window, hoping to catch a glimpse of what was happening. The shadows danced across Damon's yard, and she could see him moving frantically, his silhouette illuminated by the flickering light of a lantern. The suspense built within her, as she tried to piece together the puzzle of his life. Was he in trouble? Was he a danger to himself or others? The more she listened, the more her imagination ran wild, conjuring up scenarios that ranged from the bizarre to the terrifying. She felt a strange compulsion to intervene, to knock on his door and offer help, but the fear of his unpredictable nature held her back. As the days passed, Lisa's fascination with Damon deepened, intertwining with a growing sense of unease. The odd noises and mysterious events at his house became a nightly ritual, each sound echoing in her mind long after she had gone to bed. She found herself torn between wanting to understand the man next door and fearing what she might uncover. The line between curiosity and dread blurred, leaving her in a state of constant anticipation, wondering what secrets lay hidden behind the walls of Damon's enigmatic life. Driven by an insatiable curiosity and a growing sense of unease, Lisa finally decided to explore Damon's house. The strange noises and odd occurrences had become too much to ignore, and she felt compelled to uncover the truth behind the man who lived next door. One evening, emboldened by a mix of fear and determination, she approached his front door, her heart pounding in her chest. The house loomed before her, its peeling paint and overgrown yard casting an eerie shadow in the fading light. Taking a deep breath, she knocked softly, but there was no response. With her curiosity piqued, Lisa decided to venture around to the side of the house, where she noticed a slightly ajar window. She hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks, but the urge to know what lay inside was too strong. Climbing through the window, she landed softly on the floor of a dimly lit room, filled with an assortment of odd trinkets and clutter. The atmosphere was thick with dust and the faint scent of something metallic, sending a chill down her spine. As she stepped further inside, Lisa's eyes were drawn to a door at the far end of the room. It was slightly ajar, and she could hear muffled voices coming from the other side. Curiosity getting the better of her, she approached the door and pushed it open, revealing a scene that sent her heart racing. Inside was a makeshift party, but it was unlike any gathering she had ever seen. A group of older men sat around a table, their faces illuminated by flickering candles. They were engaged in hushed conversations, their expressions serious and intense. The atmosphere was unsettling, filled with an undercurrent of tension that made Lisa's skin crawl. She quickly realized that this was no ordinary gathering. It felt clandestine, secretive, and deeply unsettling. As she stood frozen in the doorway, trying to process what she was witnessing, one of the men glanced in her direction. Panic surged through her and she instinctively stepped back, her heart racing as she realized she had stumbled into something far more sinister than she had anticipated. The men's eyes narrowed, and she could feel their scrutiny piercing through her. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the basement below, causing everyone to turn their attention away from her. Seizing the opportunity, Lisa quietly slipped back into the dimly lit room, her mind racing with questions. What was happening in Damon's house? Why were these men gathered here? The realization that something was terribly wrong settled heavily in her stomach. As she made her way back toward the window, the tension in the air thickened, and she could hear the men's voices rising in agitation. The atmosphere felt charged, as if they were on the brink of something explosive. Lisa's instincts screamed at her to leave, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she had uncovered a dark secret that needed to be exposed. With her heart pounding, she climbed back through the window, her mind racing with the implications of what she had just witnessed. The world outside felt suddenly foreign, and she knew she had to find a way to alert the authorities before it was too late. As we wrap up this exploration into the unsettling experiences that can lurk just beyond our front doors, it's essential to reflect on the key themes we've discussed throughout the video. The narratives of both Garrett and Lisa serve as poignant reminders of the dangers and unknowns that can exist in our everyday lives. Whether it's the mysterious neighbor with a hidden past or the strange occurrences that unfold in seemingly ordinary settings, these stories highlight the importance of remaining vigilant and aware of our surroundings. As we conclude, we invite you to reflect on your own experiences and consider how you can apply these lessons in your daily life. Have you ever encountered a situation that made you question your safety? How did you respond? Sharing your thoughts and experiences can help create a dialogue that empowers others to be more aware and proactive. If you found this video insightful, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to create content that explores the intriguing and often unsettling aspects of life. Don't forget to like this video and share it with friends and family who might benefit from these discussions. We encourage you to leave your thoughts in the comments below. What resonated with you the most? What other topics would you like us to explore? Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. Until next time, stay safe and curious.